is Montserrat. I've been in HP for a long time too. When you said 27, I started my calculation. It's 28 for me. So managing teams, R&D and services, and I also done some corporate strategy. And I've been working in security, in the security topic for a while, several years now. Nigel?
Nigel Burnford. I'm the token Englishman here today, although I have adopted France as my home. So I come from HP Enterprise Services Security Consulting Division, and I run and look after a team of security principals engaged with key customers where there are the largest amounts of change to work through with them, security, strategy, and we also deal with a lot of significant remediations, massive breaches by companies who have invested a lot of money already and suddenly find that in spite of all that, they need help.
So it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when a breach will occur, unfortunately. So what we will be talking about today is first, what's the reality we're facing today on security, and then how we need to protect our companies in this new digital world, including training users. And we will show you two real examples, one from Nigel on a real remediation case with a customer, and I also will show you a case which is a nice collaboration between HP Labs, the IT, corporate IT, and my product division. So the first reality we are facing is adversaries are acting in a marketplace. Adversaries are more and more specialized, and as any market, when they specialize, they make more money. They are also very well organized following this process. So first they are able to build profiles on us. They sell these profiles. They know from the social media, from anything they can gather, who exactly we are, and they build these profiles and they sell it. There are other people who are very good at breaking in, building tools, very, very professional to do that, and this is also in the black market. One can buy a botnet for a certain amount of time. It's incredible what you can find there. There are other people who then build the maps of the assets. What's inside the company, where are the important data, who are the people, etc. And these maps are also sold. They capture data, and then it's exfiltrated and monetized. And of course, the most valuable thing is the data. So very quickly, as you're going to show another example. We often talk about the Sony Entertainment case because it's very well known, and it's kind of follows very closely this cycle. The attackers, they targeted Sony Entertainment executives. At the same time, Sony was performing an audit, and they realized they were not monitoring certain devices like firewalls, but that didn't ring really a bell. The infiltration was probably a phishing attack, but it is not really known precisely. And they really managed to obtain the maps, the admin usernames, and the privileges of the administrators. They deployed malware in the critical places. It propagated, and they managed to exfiltrate and do a lot of damage. This was known when they started posting this information, and the trade secrets they had stolen, and so it was also for them huge business disruption. So Nigel, when we have this kind of case when a breach is released, what is your team doing about it?
Well, typically, and this is based on a large number of cases that we've been working with, we have a big problem from the outset because somebody has discovered that something critical, something really important has gone missing. In a particular case, which I'll talk about later, it was a manufacturing organisation who had spent a lot of money in R&D coming up with a new process and a new product, and they found that somebody else had released it to market 6 months before they thought they were capable of releasing it to market. Oh dear, we have a breach. And you then get a problem because the board, who has been signing off IT budgets and signing off large investments in security, is asking the question, so all this money I've been signing off, why isn't it protecting us? And so there's a tension between IT, who has been delivering the service, and the board who's been handing out the money. So we make sure that right from the beginning we get very, very close to the board to make sure that we are acting with their full authority. It's absolutely critical that we do that without the support of the board to make sometimes some very difficult and some very tricky decisions, and making sure that we've got the entire IT community on board is going to be a very, very difficult job. So that's the first thing, the buy-in. What we then do is need to make sure that there are 3 work streams in parallel. There is a discovery, a remediation work stream. Who has got in? How did they get in? What are they after? How do they get the information out? Have they actually taken anything already? And dependent on the answers to that will come a decision as to how quickly we need to remediate, how quickly we need to lock them out. That's a delicate one because if you do it too quickly, if you do it before you know how to control the situation once you've got them out, they'll be back again. We're talking about advanced persistent threats. They're advanced because they're very, very complex. They're persistent because they know what they want, and if they don't get it first time, they'll come back again and again and again. And actually, we talk about advanced persistent threats. We should be talking about advanced persistent targets, because it's no longer a threat. It's actually a target at that point.
So can you share a real example?
Yeah. Four phases really. There's the initial engagement. For this particular one, this was the manufacturing company. They knew they'd been hacked. They hadn't really thought through the implications, and they wanted to be very sure that we had the appropriate contractual agreement in place. So it took 4 weeks. It took 4 weeks to come up with a scope of work to define the limits of responsibility, of liability as well. So that one took 4 weeks. We have been on others where somebody, the CIO has said, come in now, here's an authority to go and spend X, just start finding out what, how, why, and when. So that will depend. So the second thing is the discovery phase. In this particular one, it took 6 weeks. Profiling of the threat actors. Very quickly discovered, no great surprise, Chinese, Russian, and Indian. They're after intellectual property to reuse for their own processes. They want to use your investment in R&D for their own benefit. It's just to get to the market quicker. The nasty one in there was Syria, ISIS, in fact. And as a result of that, we were able to track them, work out what they were doing and how they were doing it, and in due course we were able to to give location, processes, and a whole pile of other information to the FBI and other security forces who actually arrested them. But what's really important here is not just understanding the threat, it's understanding your organisation. What's your support structure like? Who are your support partners? What's the limit of responsibility and scope of work for each of them, so we can put together that what we call a taxonomy. It's that map of how you operate. It's spending time defining and identifying how mature you really are. What processes have you got in place? What capabilities have you got to understand, to detect, to respond, and to react appropriately? Now, we can come in and get the bad guys out very quickly. But if your maturity is not appropriate, if you don't have the capability and the capacity to resolve it for yourself once we've gone, then it's a waste of money, it's a waste of time, and we haven't actually done anything other than delay the impact. So I just want to get on there. Briefings, education with senior management. It's not just about what we do, it's not just about what your security teams do, it's also about making sure that awareness, education is really important. The reality is that most of the breaches we see, not all, have been principally by imitating or impersonating very senior management through phishing, through spear phishing, through social engineering. So actually when the board discovers that the bad guys have got in pretending to be you, or you, or you, rather than pretending to be themselves, makes a slightly different picture. So education from the top right the way down is absolutely critical. Funding approval, because this is dependent on how mature you are, dependent on how much change is required within the organisation, is going to determine how long it's going to take, what needs to be put in place first of all, in terms of non-obtrusive changes, so technology you've got to put in place to understand what they're doing and how they're acting and their behaviour, and then the obtrusive changes that you are going to implement over the big weekend when you make the changes. Disrupting, cat and mouse game. You know they're there, they know that we're there. So there's a lot of playing around, there's making some unobtrusive changes or sometimes some very slightly obtrusive changes to be able to look closely and see how they are reacting. Where are the additional back doors? How do they change their policies and because they have a strategy for getting in. How do they move across the network and around the network, dependent on the things that we do? So there's quite a lot of that sort of watching and observing. Putting in place a long-term strategy. So there are some of the things that we need to do, there's elements of strategy we need to do now to make sure we're ready for when we kick them out. And there are other elements of the strategy which will take longer, which we can build in the year or so following a remediation. In this particular case, 21 zero-day attacks and 58 compromised domains. Fairly significant attack. And finally, the remediation itself. So, as we get closer and closer to doing it, we need to make sure that your team, the customer team, is working very, very closely. There's a lot of bonding, there's a lot of dress rehearsals, there's a lot of team building. We know, we learn, we trust each other. There are changes that we're making that don't have time to go through massive amounts of change control. They can't do. Things have to happen very, very quickly. But I say very quickly, that's taking 4 months of remediation. But the point is that sometimes you don't have a lot of time to argue about it. It's a question of making sure we've all got a common set of objectives and we're all working together as one team. Team building is really effective. And what we do on the day itself, and dependent on the business, we will cut and or limit the network. We will implement all the changes, all the technology changes, putting in new software, rebuilding systems and so on like that, and then switch the network back on again. At which point the threat actor is out, he's gone, but he'll be back, and sometimes just hours later. But by that stage, you have the systems, the maturity, the technology, the people, the processes in place to be able to detect as they come in and to be able to react to get them out immediately. So that's the way we do it.
Okay, so we are facing first adversaries, and the second reality we are facing is the new digital enterprise ecosystem, where users are accessing applications which are in the cloud, data are moving into untrusted environments, so securing the perimeter, securing the infrastructure is not sufficient. The security system needs to take this new environment into account, and yes, we need still the same security controls as always and the same practices. We need visibility, protection and governance, but in an extended environment which takes into account this extended enterprise. So on what we call the new school of cybersecurity, what are the most important factors? Well, the most important is really protecting the interactions between users, applications and data. Users, applications and data are really the most prized assets, and what we use for gathering this massive amount of information which is coming from this ecosystem is analytics. We have made the conscious choice to use analytics not on a general purpose, not to build machine learning type of analytics or a lot of mathematics. What we really want to use analytics for is to build systems to help teams like your team, Nigel, to make things more effective, the remediation shorter, and to bring visibility in a good way. To really increase productivity and help not only security teams in the companies but the general user. Several examples here. On the user side, we have some value in, we have some products on user behavior analytics. When a user, we can profile a user and know the baseline of what he's doing, and if something is outside the scope of this behavior, really raise a red flag. That is one example. On applications, well, applications is the where the vulnerabilities are just exploited at the highest rate. And applications, we monitor the changes and the interactions between users and applications outside the enterprise. We can analyze and then take action on that. And for data, well, we have also several examples where data needs to the policies need to follow the data. So it's not only encrypting data in your local PC, but if the data leaves the environment and it's a critical piece of data, the policy needs to follow. And there are also techniques to make things in a way that if data is really stolen, it's not usable anymore. So de-identification. There are a lot of ways to implement protection. Now, in the center, the security platform. to wrap this third layer, we use monitoring and analytics, monitoring to find the known threats. But the good thing about analytics is that it allows you to find unknown threats, because you analyze characteristics in a way that you can find things that are not in these blacklists or we do real-time analysis and historical and behavior analytics, and so that's the layer that provides the security intelligence automation, and that brings the productivity. So I would like to show you this example of the HP Enterprise Cyber Defense Center. So the use case is, it was before the split 300,000 or more employees, with each of them having 4 or 5 devices. The case is that we had malware in the devices, in the systems, and we had too many false positives, and it was impossible to manage. So the story is that we gave these challenges to HP Labs to build some technology that is able to handle malware with less false positives. So really, to make it manageable. They built, so they used a source which is a network source, which required big data analytics, because it's the DNA's traffic, which represents, I think, 45 billion events per day. The beauty of the thing is that it shows you're able to find very quickly which are the hosts which are infected, because and you don't need an army of data analysts to do that, but with a relatively small team, because with this kind of graphics you see the thickness of the line where the problem comes from. So let's watch video.
The challenge we are facing in Hewlett-Packard is the sheer size of this company. We're talking about a Fortune 20 company with over 300,000 employees. On a daily basis, we have over 24 billion DNS requests, which for 99% of them, they are all benign. So how do we find the 0.001% that are actually actionable? And this is where we work together with HP Labs to develop the DNS malware analyzer that gives us visibility into this rich data source, and we have used that in several high-profile investigations. What is unique about the DNS malware analyzer is that it enables us to go through these 24 billion DNS requests we have per day, find out the 0.001% that are actually interesting and relevant for a security operations center, and then start an incident response for the events we are finding. The domain name system gives them a way to distribute commands to their zombie armies without relying on static IP addresses, which can easily be blocked. Also, DNS traditionally has been a blind spot for most security operations centers. Simply because of the volume, it was hard to analyze, and actually only a small percentage of all the events are actionable. Every security operations center should have visibility into the domain name system. It's used not only by cybercrime related malware, it's also used for advanced threats. They use the domain name system for command and control infrastructure as well as data exfiltration. So as far as decision criteria is concerned, I think every security operations center should have a solution like this in place to detect not only cybercrime but also advanced threats.